All right. Let's jump into this deep dive that you all requested.
Yeah.
We're tackling David Deida's The Way of the Superior Man today.
Huh?
A book that's, it's sparked a lot of conversation.
For sure.
To say the least.
Yeah.
We've got excerpts from the book itself.
Okay.
And also like a really great online summary that somebody put together.
Like a fascinating combination of sources to work with.
Yeah, and just a heads up.
Yeah.
This book dives deep into like traditional masculine and feminine dynamics,
Right.
which we know can be a bit of a minefield these days.
Yeah.
We're approaching this with curiosity
Of course.
and respect for all perspectives.
Yeah.
The goal here is to unpack Deida's core concepts, pull out what resonates, and leave you with some thought-provoking questions to ponder.
I like that approach.
Yeah.
It's about exploring and making your own meaning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Deida doesn't waste any time getting to the heart of the matter.
Okay.
Right out of the gate, he emphasizes the importance of a man's life purpose. He's talking about having a mission, something that drives you.
Okay.
And get this, he actually says it should come before romantic relationships.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah.
And one that might make some people bristle.
Right.
But if you think about it,
Yeah.
it's about recognizing that fulfilling your purpose allows you to show up more fully in all areas of your life, including your relationships.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
If you're not energized and fulfilled by your own purpose,
Exactly.
how can you bring your best to a relationship?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it's not about neglecting your loved ones,
Right.
but about ensuring that you're cultivating your own sense of meaning and contribution. You can't give what you don't have.
Right.
So I'm curious, what comes to mind for you when you hear that idea, purpose before relationship? Does it resonate? Does it challenge you?
It's definitely challenging. I mean, in today's world, relationships are often seen as the ultimate goal. So to hear Deida putting purpose first, it's a shift in perspective for sure.
Yeah.
It makes me think about where I'm prioritizing my energy
Right.
and how that impacts my relationships. What about you?
For me, it highlights the importance of self-awareness.
Okay.
What are those core values, those passions that light you up?
Yeah.
And are you actively cultivating them?
Right.
If you're not, it might be worth exploring how dedicating even just a little time each week to your purpose might impact not just your own fulfillment, but the quality of your relationships.
That's a great point. It's not an all or nothing thing.
Right.
It's about finding that balance.
Exactly.
So Deida doesn't stop at purpose.
Okay.
He dives deeper into the dynamics of relationships, specifically what he calls polarity.
This is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
He talks about masculine and feminine energies, not as rigid gender roles,
Right.
but as forces that exist within each of us.
Okay.
He argues that attraction thrives on the interplay of these energies. One partner embodying more the masculine energy, which is about direction focus, taking action.
And the other embodying more of the feminine receptivity flow, being in the moment.
Yeah,
So it's not about one being better than the other.
right.
It's about the dynamic interplay between the two.
Exactly. Instead of that basic battery analogy,
Okay.
think of it more like breathing.
Okay.
There's an inhale and an exhale,
Right.
a giving and a receiving.
Mm-hmm.
And when both are present, it creates this beautiful rhythm, this energetic dance.
That's a much more nuanced way of looking at it.
Yeah.
And Deida believes that maintaining this distinct polarity is crucial for keeping the passion alive.
Right.
He even goes so far as to say that without it, relationships can become, well, his words are, two buddies rubbing genitals.
He can be pretty blunt,
Yeah.
but I get what he's saying.
Yeah.
Without that energetic tension, that push and pull relationships can lose their spark.
Right.
And it's not about forcing yourself into some predefined role.
Yeah.
It's about understanding those energies within yourself and how they interact with your partners.
So how do we actually navigate this dance of polarity in real life?
I've seen this dynamic play out in such fascinating ways.
Yeah.
I once knew a couple, they were both artists, and he was very much the driving force, always pushing boundaries, coming up with these grand visions.
The masculine energy in action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she was the one who brought those visions to life, adding layers of detail, emotion, and beauty.
The feminine energy grounding those ideas and giving them form.
And you could see this beautiful interplay between them, this mutual respect and appreciation for each other's strengths.
Yeah.
They weren't trying to be the same. They were embracing their differences and creating something magical together.
That's a beautiful example.
Yeah.
It really highlights how this concept of polarity, when it's not about rigid roles,
Right.
but about embracing our unique energies,
Yeah.
can lead to such powerful collaborations, not just in romantic relationships, but in all areas of life.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the key takeaways here.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to fit into some predefined box.
Right.
It's about understanding and honoring your own unique energy and how it interacts with the world around you.
So we've got purpose as the foundation.
Yes.
And polarity as the spark.
Mm-hmm.
What else does Deida highlight in his exploration of relationships?
He spends a good deal of time exploring the feminine perspective. And one of his most memorable metaphors is about a woman's emotions.
Okay.
A woman's moods are like the weather.
Oh,
You can't predict them, but you can dance with them.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so true. Women's emotions are often seen as this mysterious, unpredictable force.
Right.
But what does that actually look like for a man?
Yeah.
What's the dance?
Deida's advice is to accept and appreciate the fluctuating nature of feminine energy instead of trying to fix or control it.
So instead of getting frustrated or trying to solve a partner's emotional state, the superior man would just be present with it.
Exactly. To ride the waves, so to speak.
Right.
And I know that could be incredibly challenging, especially in our culture, where men are often conditioned to be problem solvers.
Right.
But what if, instead of trying to fix things,
Yeah.
we just allowed ourselves to be present with the full spectrum of emotions, our own and our partners?
That's a powerful shift in perspective. It makes me think about all the times I've tried to fix a partner's mood
Yeah.
instead of just listening and being there for them.
It's a common pattern, and it often backfires.
Yeah.
When we try to control or change someone's emotional state,
Right.
it can create distance and resentment.
Yeah.
But when we can simply be present, hold space for those emotions without judgment,
Yeah.
it can create a profound sense of connection.
It's about letting go of the need to have all the answers and just being there with compassion and understanding.
Exactly. It's a practice, and it's not always easy. But the rewards of cultivating that kind of presence in your relationships are immeasurable.
Now, I know some people find Deida's work a bit too well traditionally gendered, like stuck in old school roles.
Okay.
How do we reconcile this with a more modern understanding of gender?
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that Deida is writing from a particular perspective.
Right.
And it's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all approach. But I think the core principles can still be relevant if we're willing to adapt them to our own individual experiences.
Okay.
He's not advocating for dominance or aggression.
Right.
It's about tapping into those qualities of strength, purpose, and presence that exist within all of us, regardless of gender.
So what does the superior man look like in Deida's world?
He's the guy who embraces both strength and heart.
Okay.
He's fully present, responsible for his energy, and leads with love rather than force. He's not afraid of emotions, his own or his partner's.
Okay, so there's a depth and sensitivity there that goes beyond the stereotypical strong, silent type.
Exactly.
And it sounds like it takes a lot of courage to embrace that vulnerability.
It does.
Yeah.
It's about being willing to step outside of those societal expectations and connect with your authentic self. And that can be incredibly liberating.
That makes me wonder, in a world where masculinity is often associated with stoicism and control, how do we encourage men to embrace those softer qualities?
That's a great question. And it ties into Deida's emphasis on facing fear, which we'll get to in just a moment.
Yep.
But first, let's take a pause here and pick up the rest of this juicy deep dive in part 2.
Okay, we're back and ready to continue our deep dive into the way of the superior man.
Right.
We just touched on how Deida encourages men to embrace vulnerability and step outside of those limiting societal expectations.
It's a powerful invitation to redefine what it means to be a man in today's world.
Absolutely. And speaking of redefining things, Deida also has some interesting and perhaps controversial views on men being attracted to younger women.
Yeah, this is where things can get a little tricky. But it's important to remember that Deida isn't advocating for anything inappropriate. He's exploring the energetic dynamics at play. He argues that it's not simply about physical youthfulness, but about a certain kind of feminine energy that he calls radiance.
That's a much more nuanced way of looking at it. So it's not about chasing after the hot young thing,
Right.
but about being drawn to a particular quality.
Exactly. And this radiance isn't tied to age.
Okay.
It's about a woman's openness, her trust in herself and the world, her ability to connect deeply and express her authentic self. These are qualities that can actually deepen with age and experience.
That's a refreshing perspective. It makes me think about the women in my life who embody this kind of radiance.
Yeah.
They might not fit the conventional standards of beauty, but there's something about their energy, their presence that draws you in.
Yeah.
It's magnetic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think of someone who walks into a room and just lights it up.
Yeah.
It's not about their physical appearance. It's about the energy they radiate. It's that spark of aliveness, that sense of joy and authenticity that's so captivating.
So how do we cultivate this radiance both in ourselves and in our relationships?
It's a journey of self-discovery and growth. It's about embracing our vulnerabilities, letting go of the need to be perfect, and allowing ourselves to be fully seen. It's about trusting our intuition, speaking our truth, and living in alignment with our values.
It sounds like it requires a lot of courage to step into that kind of authenticity.
It does. But the rewards are immense. When we cultivate this radiance within ourselves, it naturally spills over into our relationships. We become more magnetic, more attractive, not in a superficial way, but in a way that draws people in on a deeper level.
It's about connecting soul to soul, heart to heart.
Exactly. And speaking of deep connection, Deida doesn't shy away from exploring the more intimate aspects of relationships.
Yeah.
In fact, he has some pretty thought-provoking views on, well, ejaculation.
Oh boy, here we go. This should be interesting.
He believes that for men, ejaculation can lead to a decrease in presence and awareness.
Okay.
He even compares the typical post-orgasmic state to blissful oblivion.
That's a pretty vivid description, and probably one that many men can relate to. So he's not saying that sex is bad, but that there's a potential for a loss of energy and awareness.
Exactly. He's not advocating for abstinence, but rather for a more conscious approach to sexuality. He explores techniques for converting sexual energy upwards, using breathing and muscle control to enhance presence rather than diminishing it.
That's a fascinating concept. So instead of just going for the physical release, it's about channeling that energy in a way that deepens connection and awareness.
Precisely. And it's not just about the physical sensations. He's talking about a shift in consciousness, a way of experiencing intimacy that's more connected, more expansive, and ultimately more fulfilling.
It's about bringing awareness and intention to every aspect of our experience.
Yeah.
Even the most intimate ones.
Exactly. It's about becoming fully embodied, present in our bodies and in the moment, and allowing that presence to inform our actions and interactions.
So we've explored purpose, polarity, feminine radiance, and even conscious sexuality. Is there anything else that Deida highlights in his exploration of the superior man?
There's one more key aspect that we haven't touched on yet, the importance of facing fear. Deida believes that true strength lies in staying grounded and acting with integrity even when things get tough.
Yeah.
And he doesn't mince words when it comes to urging men to step out of their comfort zones.
Right.
He has this great line, "Stop waiting for everything to be perfect. The perfect moment never comes."
That's a powerful call to action. It's about taking risks, embracing the unknown, and not letting fear hold us back from living our purpose.
Right.
And I think it applies to everyone, not just men.
Absolutely. We all have fears that hold us back.
Yeah.
But it's in those moments when we choose to face those fears, to step outside of our comfort zones, that we truly grow and evolve.
It's about acknowledging that fear is a natural part of the human experience, but it doesn't have to control us.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that fear is often a sign that we're on the right track, that we're moving towards something meaningful.
Okay.
And it's in those moments of discomfort, when we choose courage over comfort, that we discover our true strength.
That's such an empowering message, and it makes me think about all the areas in my life where I'm letting fear hold me back. What about you? Have you had any experiences where facing your fears led to unexpected growth?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I used to be terrified of public speaking. The thought of standing up in front of a crowd and sharing my ideas would send me into a full-blown panic attack.
Wow, that's a pretty common fear.
Yeah.
So how did you overcome it?
It was a gradual process. I started small, speaking up more in meetings, taking on small presentations.
Yeah.
And each time I faced that fear, it got a little easier.
Okay.
And you know what? I actually started to enjoy it.
That's amazing. It just shows that the more we face our fears, the less power they have over us.
Exactly. And the more we realize that we're capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for.
So we've got purpose, polarity, feminine radiance, conscious sexuality, and now facing fear. Deida's way of the superior man is packed with thought-provoking concepts.
It is.
But there's one more intriguing aspect we need to explore, what he calls the dark masculine.
Yes. This is where Deida delves into the primal aspects of masculinity.
Okay.
Those raw, instinctual energies that can be both powerful and potentially destructive.
Okay.
He's talking about the fascination with risk competition, the drive to conquer even the contemplation of death. And he's not saying that these things are inherently bad,
Right.
but that they need to be understood and integrated in a healthy way.
This is getting pretty deep, and it sounds like it could be easily misinterpreted. Can you give us some examples of how this dark masculine energy can manifest in both healthy and unhealthy ways?
Sure. Think about the popularity of war movies or the intense emotions that men experience during sports.
Yeah.
These are outlets for that primal energy, that need for challenge and competition.
Right.
In a healthy expression, this energy can fuel ambition drive and a willingness to push boundaries. It can be the force that drives innovation, protects loved ones, and pushes humanity forward.
Okay.
But when it's not channeled consciously, it can manifest in aggression, violence, and a need for control.
So it's not about suppressing those primal urges, but about understanding them, integrating them, and finding healthy outlets for that energy.
Exactly. DI believes that this integration is crucial for becoming a whole, integrated man. It's about acknowledging the full spectrum of our being, both the light and the shadow, and finding ways to express those energies in a way that's aligned with our values.
And he even suggests that this integration can deepen intimacy, allowing for a more primal, passionate connection.
Yes, he believes that when both partners are willing to embrace their full selves, including those darker, more primal aspects, it can create a deeper level of trust and vulnerability. It's about being willing to meet each other in those raw, authentic spaces.
Wow, this is really pushing the boundaries of conventional relationship advice. We've covered so much ground in this deep dive. Purpose, polarity, feminine radiance, conscious sexuality, facing fear, and now this exploration of the dark masculine. It's a lot to take in. And before we get too overwhelmed, let's take a pause here and pick up the rest of this juicy deep dive in part 3. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the way of the superior man. We've covered a lot of ground already, from purpose and polarity to feminine radiance and even the dark masculine.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah.
And we've still got one more key concept to explore. Remember at the end of part 2, we touched on Deida's idea about a man being responsible for guiding the depth of a relationship. Let's unpack that a bit further.
Yeah, I'm really curious to hear more about that. It sounds a bit mysterious, even a bit daunting. What does it actually mean for a man to guide the depth of a relationship?
Well, it goes back to those core principles we've been discussing: purpose, presence, and polarity. Deida believes that when a man is firmly grounded in his purpose, radiating that masculine energy of direction and strength, it creates a space for the feminine to open and expand.
So it's not about controlling the relationship,
Right.
but about creating a container for deeper connection.
Exactly. Imagine a man who is truly comfortable with himself, both his strengths and his vulnerabilities.
Okay.
He's not afraid of intimacy, of emotional depth.
Right.
He's able to hold space for his partner's full range of emotions, even the messy, challenging ones.
He's not shying away from intensity, from those moods like the weather we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
He's riding the waves alongside her.
Yes. And that creates a sense of safety and trust, allowing her to relax into her feminine energy, to express herself more fully, to explore those deeper emotional landscapes.
So it's almost like he's setting the stage, creating the atmosphere for that depth to emerge.
That's a great way to put it. He's providing the structure, the direction, while also being receptive to her energy, her flow. That delicate balance, a dance of giving and receiving.
This is making me think about all the ways we communicate depth in relationships.
Yeah.
It's not just about grand gestures or profound conversations, is it?
Not at all. It's often the small things, the subtle nuances that create that sense of connection.
Okay.
It's about being fully present in those everyday moments. Really listening to your partner, being attuned to their needs and desires.
It's about the way we look at each other, the way we touch, the way we make space for each other's dreams and fears.
Exactly. It's about showing up authentically, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about being willing to be vulnerable, to share our true selves, and to create a space where our partner feels safe to do the same.
And maybe even especially when it's uncomfortable.
Yes.
Because those are the moments when true intimacy is forged, right?
Absolutely. When we allow ourselves to be seen, to be held in those raw, messy moments, it creates a bond that goes beyond the superficial.
This has been such a rich deep dive. I feel like we've just scratched the surface of Deida's work. But even in this brief exploration, we've touched on some really powerful concepts.
We definitely have. The Way of the Superior Man is a book that can spark a lot of introspection and conversation. It challenges us to think differently about masculinity, relationships, and the potential for deep connection.
And that's the beauty of it, right? It's not about agreeing with everything, but about engaging with the ideas, letting them percolate, and seeing what resonates for you.
couldn't have said it better myself. We've explored purpose as the foundation, polarity as the spark, navigating the feminine landscape, facing fears, embracing the dark side, and the importance of conscious intimacy.
Wow, when you put it like that, it's a lot to take in.
It is, and we haven't even touched on everything. But remember, even if just one idea, one insight from this deep dive has sparked something in you, then it's been a worthwhile journey.
So true. It's all about those aha moments, those shifts in perspective that can ripple out into our lives. So, dear listener, as we wrap up this exploration of the way of the superior man, we leave you with this final lingering question. What does it mean for you to guide the depth of your relationships? How can you cultivate that presence, that strength, and that willingness to embrace the full spectrum of human experience?
We encourage you to ponder that question, to explore it in your own life and relationships. And if you're feeling inspired, share your thoughts with us. We'd love to hear your insights.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration.